This is Ann Davis, and this is January the 14th of 2022, and I'm honored to be here today with Dr. Phillip Swanson. And we're just delighted to have you here and listen to some of your interesting stories. Phillip, thank you for giving us that time out of your busy schedule, I'm sure, to come and be with us today. And I wanted to ask you first off a little bit about your background in education. You've had 36 years, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Ann, and I appreciate you having me down here today. You know I love McNeely County and the people in it. My educational career started, I was an English teacher at Massville High School and then later at Tellico Plains High School. And while I was at Tellico, I became principal up there and served in that capacity for a couple of years. And then J.C. Burris called me and wanted to know if I was interested in being assistant principal at McMinn High. So I did that for 7 years and working alongside people like Johnny Grubb and with John Fogarty. And then I went to the vocational center and took a legend, Jim Parris's place. And after that, Dr. Fogarty appointed me as secondary supervisor overseeing both high schools and the vocational center.
Well, Phillip, it's very inspiring to me when people have such a love for education and they stay in it as many years as you have. My mother taught till she was 89 years old.
Wow. After
she retired from teaching, then she started volunteering and doing GED classes, and I guess that's why I've always admired those of you who stayed in the field that long, because there's many challenges and the changes through the years in education. What are some of your best memories of some of the changes and challenges that you had to face?
Well, the best memories were when I was closest to the students, and as I left the classroom, became a school administrator. As principal and assistant principal, I was still able to enjoy the kids. Of course, when I moved to the central office, it kind of removes you from that first love, which is kids, but it allows you to help kids in a different way and work with parents. The challenges, education has changed a great deal over time. One of the biggest changes was the assessment piece as we moved into the testing arena. And eventually, myself and Diane Benson, we were over the testing with McMahon County Schools, and as they embarked on complete online testing, it was met with a lot of technical challenges. But of course, the students have changed over the years. You had a lot fewer students in nuclear families and problems, those sorts of things. But that was part of what we tried to do, was help the kids.
Constantly changing, and they're facing some really challenging days today, aren't they, with virtual and...
Yes, what the school leaders and teachers have had to go through. I'm married to a kindergarten teacher. With the virtual learning, the whole COVID arena and all that has come, I really feel for the current group of educators out there. It's a very demanding job and high expectations from the community, but very tough to perform under conditions that we've seen, especially the last couple of years.
Oh, that's so true, so true. Well, Phillip, after 36 years in education and you retired, you took on a second career, I believe, as an author, didn't you? Can you tell us just a little bit about the book that you've written and what inspired you to write it?
So, a boy from Tellico Plains High School named Joe Shepard, he had committed some rather atrocious crimes. And I was a senior in high school when his second victim fell under his hands. And as time went on, this young man finally was captured and then eventually escaped from Bradley County Jail and disappeared for over a decade. I was teaching English at Tellico Plains High School when he was caught. And in 1988, I wrote him a letter asking about writing his story when he was incarcerated in Canada. And his lawyer wrote me a letter back saying, don't be writing him any more letters. So I didn't. Time went on. He was brought back to the United States and tried and everything. And so I just kind of left that on the back burner a little bit. And as I got closer to retirement, one of the things I knew I wanted to do was to do some writing. Wasn't sure where it would go. But my wife, she's really into true crime and that sort of thing. And I was telling her more details about this situation, and I thought, well, why not embark down this road? So I set about it. It was close to 4 years of research to get to the point where I was able to get the book published.
Now, when Joe Shepard disappeared for 10 years, was that when he was in Canada?
Yes, ma'am.
And he was incarcerated there?
No, he disappeared. He escaped. He was on the streets of London, Ontario.
Okay.
And David Guy and others here in this community took advantage of a new true crime series called Unsolved Mysteries.
Huh.
And after working with them, they came and did a segment on Joe Shepard, and it did garner leads that led to his capture in London, Ontario.
Is Mr. Shepard still alive today?
No, he passed away a few years ago in River Bend Correctional Institute there in Nashville.
Oh my, that's quite a story, and I imagine the research was just, have you got any interesting stories about your research and the challenges you faced there?
Well, I think as I look at the Joe Shepard story and myself, I kind of feel like maybe I was meant to write it because, I knew the lead investigator well in Tellico Plains at the time, Joe Graves, who actually, his son Ben ended up marrying Brooke Reed, which is Don Reed's daughter. He was the lead investigator, and he was the first person I interviewed, and I really have a lot of respect for Joe. And then Larry Wallace was involved in the story. I know Larry well and value him a great deal as a friend. David Guy was a person that had his hands in on the story. I didn't know David as well. Joe Guy is a good friend of mine, but David, I came to know him better. And Richard Brogan was a key piece of it, and I've known Richard for a long time as well. So I was able to get in the door to have interviews with them, and where possible, evidence files to be able to use for material, to try to put it forth in a factual way.
Well, and I know sometimes getting a book published is a challenge. My sister is an author, and she self-published, and I understand that's what you did.
I did. I consulted with some publishing companies, and in the end, through consultation with other authors like Joe Guy, a fellow there in Madison who's since passed away, and in the end, I went through Amazon, and it took me a long time to figure out how to navigate the platform, but now I feel like I can manage it much better.
Philip, what does the cover of your book look like? Let's see the front of that. So if we're looking for it in a bookstore.
It's got the Bad Shepherd, and it's set in the woods with a road going to nowhere, kind of speaking, and which, if you read the story, you'll see how relevant that is to the way he did his deeds. He liked to get girls into the mountain roads and take advantage of the fact that there weren't people around.
Well, I think you captured a very relevant story to our area, and thank you for doing that, because 4 years of research, that's a lot of time out of a person's life, but you brought something to light here that I didn't know about. I did not know that story.
Yeah, it's a 40-year-old story, and still today there's a lot of fear in certain circles. I couldn't tell you how many people would share with me something but would not agree to be attributed to. They don't tell anybody, but I'll tell you this, and that was fairly common. Fear still exists.
Huh. Have you had any desire to write another book?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell us about that.
I think now that I've learned how to navigate the platform, I found the writing of the book was easier than trying to figure out how to self-publish. And I hope next time that part will be a little easier now that I've become familiar with the platform. But I was inspired after we went to a trip to Charleston this spring we went through on the aircraft carriers of World War II and this, that, and the other. But they had a area set up to honor and show the Vietnam War, and had the audio of helicopters. It was quite an extravagant part of basically a museum. And and I thought, you know, I think I'd like to tell some stories from Southeast Tennessee to honor, and there's bound to be lots of inspiring stories about our local guys who fought in the Vietnam War, and they're still alive. Some of them, many of them, are still alive to be able to tell the stories. I had written a story some years ago about World War II, Charles Lee's story, which I don't know if you know Sharon Lee. She's on the Tennessee Supreme Court. Her dad was a prisoner of war, so in World War II, I had written a story about him. It's not a book. It's about a 25-page story, but I thought, well, why not try to do something to honor the Vietnam veterans?
I think that's very commendable because, as we were discussing earlier, there were so many of them mistreated terribly when they came back, and it's been very gratifying the last few years to see people stepping up to thank them for their service rather than some of the other ways they've been treated. It's good to see a change of, because anyone, regardless of what your beliefs are, if you're serving your country, that's honorable.
Absolutely.
And but Phillip, I've just thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been interesting talking to you and visiting with you. Have you got any thoughts on to end with on living here in McMinn County? Have you got any good memories that you?
Oh, absolutely. I lived in Englewood for a period of time and got married and moved to their family there, and my daughter in Madisonville, and have been there since. But just McMinn County and McMinn County school system was just great to me. I was very blessed with the opportunity to get to work with so many outstanding educators who really have the best interests of students at heart. And it's just a great county. McMinn County is well run, and so I was very blessed to be able to spend 25 years here.
Well, we were blessed to have you spend those years here, and thank you again for all you've done, and especially what you did for our students. You know, you never know until maybe later in life how you've affected a child, and at maybe a vulnerable time in their life. And thank you for the time and the dedication and the caring that you put into those students all those years and the difference you made.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that.